Hello and welcome along or welcome back to Future Now, the podcast from global innovation platform and ED sister brand Springwise. Each month we bring you the latest stories, conversations and insights from across the world of sustainable and climate innovation, the people, the projects and the big ideas shaping our collective future. So it's the week ending 27th of March, and for this episode we're diving into the world of sports. So whether you're a rugby enthusiast and were tuning into the Six Nations and left bitterly disappointed if you're an England fan like myself, or you're eagerly awaiting the Football World Cup coming up this summer, this year has something for every sports fan. Not to mention, we've not long wrapped up the 2026 Winter Olympics and Paralympic Games held in Milan and Cortina. Fresh off the Formula E races in Jeddah, which took place last month, we've got the chance to speak with Julia Pallé, who is the series Vice President of Sustainability, as well as Sylvain Filippi, the Managing Director and CTO of Formula E team Envision Racing.
We are getting people to experience, see, test and be inspired by sustainable lifestyles. And what we want people to take away is that obviously, first of all, you should drive electric vehicles because it's just like a much more enjoyable, efficient solution. But also living a more sustainable lifestyle is actually something that is really cool, really innovative, and just simply will feel better. So it's very much the role that we play when it comes to the marketing lever that the series has.
We are getting to this really nice time in industry where technology is not good enough to give us options, to give us really affordable, still good range, but very affordable electric cars, and then also incredibly long range, 500 mile plus cars, which is amazing, right? Like 5 years ago, that no one would have thought that was possible.
Yes, hello and welcome to Future Now. I'm Matilda Cox, the content editor here at Springwise, coming to you from our studio over in East Grinstead. As normal, I'm also joined in the studio by our commissioning editor, Matt Hempstead. So Matt, today we're diving into the world of sustainable sport. Now, sport might not be the first sector that comes to mind when you think about climate innovation, but it probably should be because it's such a diverse industry. The global sports sector is obviously worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and it spans everything from mega events like the Olympics to grassroots clubs, and it influences billions of fans worldwide.
Hi Matilda, yes absolutely. So as an avid sports watcher / fan, you might say, myself, I have to confess that even though this is my job, sustainability, it rarely crosses my mind when I'm watching my local non-league football team, Horsham FC, battle it out in the lofty heights of National League South. So I apologise to our international listeners, as I appreciate that is a very niche British reference, but for our US or indeed any Venezuelan listeners out there, I also very much enjoyed this year's World Baseball Classic, which finished this week and was epic. On a more serious note, as much as I love sport, it obviously has a huge environmental impact, and a single mega event like the Olympics or the World Cup can generate millions of tonnes of carbon emissions. Think about international travel for the teams, for example, and the fans, not to mention. Energy-intensive stadiums as well, construction materials, broadcasting infrastructure, food and beverage operations and event waste, and that's all added to the equipment that the sports themselves rely on. For example, to build the high-performance garments that so many professional athletes and everyday fitness enthusiasts alike rely on often requires energy-intensive processes and fossil-derived dyes and fibres. That all includes elastane-based fabrics like spandex and lycra, which are perfect for activewear because of their compression, stretch and moisture-wicking qualities. But not only do these materials rely on toxic solvents in their manufacturing, but they're also notoriously hard to recycle, making them a big sustainability concern all round.
And on the topic of sports and the climate, winter sports in particular are facing a bit of an existential challenge with rising global temperatures, meaning that natural snow is obviously becoming less reliable. And that's what makes the Winter Olympics and the Paralympics particularly interesting. And this year, of course, it was the most kind of geographically widespread Winter Games in a bid to sort of minimise the impact and minimise the number of new structures they were going to need and make use of existing sites instead. So the spotlight wasn't just on the athletes and the sports themselves, but on how the organisers more broadly were addressing questions around sustainability, climate resilience and long-term legacy. So now that both games are done, it'll be really interesting to see how the dismantling phase pans out and also how the US then approaches sustainability for the LA 2028 Summer Games. But beyond mega events like the Olympics, leagues and individual teams are increasingly positioning themselves as platforms for innovation, whether that's in terms of clean energy tech, low carbon mobility, circular design, or fan engagement. So for today's episode, we're asking, can sport become a laboratory for sustainable innovation? And more importantly, can it move from symbolic gestures to generating more systemic, widespread change? And it might sound somewhat counterintuitive, but one of the most interesting spaces for sustainability innovation is motorsports. So historically associated with fossil fuels, noise, and really high emissions, it's certainly not an area that you'd link with sustainability, but motorsports is now kind of reinventing itself around electrification and innovation, and it's becoming a bit of a testbed for low carbon technologies. So Formula E, for instance, is an international motorsport championship that uses cars with all electric motors. With its debut race taking place in Beijing back in 2014, Formula E is now in its 12th season. So the championship takes teams all around the world, but unlike traditional Formula One racing, which takes place on permanent large-scale tracks, Formula E brings races into city centres for shorter but often kind of more complex routes. So just like for organisers of huge events like the Olympics, event planning and impact is also really central to Formula E, as well as the kind of technology and the sport itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And those technologies can then filter down into everyday mobility. So the teams within Formula E aren't just racing, they're also exploring new models for sustainability in the sport itself. And to learn more about this, I was lucky enough to sit down with Julia Pallé, who is the VP of Sustainability at Formula E, and Sylvain Filippi, the Managing Director and CTO of Envision Racing, one of the 10 teams currently racing in the 2025 to 26 season. Here's that conversation now in full. So Julia and Sylvain, I really appreciate you giving us your time this afternoon. I'm just going to jump straight in with the first question, which is for you, Julia. So high performance sport and sustainability, they might seem like unlikely partners, but when it comes to Formula E, you've been consistently at the top of the global sustainability benchmarking sport list. Could you just give us a quick rundown of what being the most sustainable motorsport championship looks like in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, because it's very important for us to be, continually not only topping the GSBS ranking, but it's a question of every year improving our own score. So first of all, it's a competition with ourselves for continual improvement when it comes to sustainability. And what is beautiful with GSBS is it's environmental, social, economic governance assessments. So it's a real holistic picture of Formula E's performance. And I would say, besides motorsports, it's a global index for any major sports stakeholders. So in this ranking, you would have obviously the likes of F1, but also FIFA, NBA, NHL, and so on. So it's really important for us because we're able to showcase that as a sport born with a purpose, we're able to make, in essence, no compromise between the quality of our sport, but also the credentials and the high level standards of our sustainability approach.
Brilliant. And then so you have your 4 E's of your sustainable development objectives. Do you mind just giving us a quick overview of what those are?
Absolutely. So, the 4 E's, which are basically, the sort of key pillars of our sustainability strategy. First of all, excellence. That's really going down to where we are. Motorsport is a place where excellence reigns, and everything that we do is basically, in accordance to being the best version of ourselves, and really trying to be always leading from the front, trying to showcase what the right pathway is when it comes to sustainability in sports in general. And that includes all the work that we do on our racing cars. The upcoming racing car that we'll launch in a couple of weeks now is the first and only race cars that will be 100% recyclable. So that's a major achievement for us, and something that we want really to showcase to the world as, something to follow. The other one is probably more to be expected for Formula E. It's everything that revolves around the environment, and that's in essence how we follow the BSI international standard for net zero. And now there's a very clear independent pathway that is third-party audited for net zero, and we were the first sport in the world to achieve it. It's very important to us to basically showcase that you can grow as a business while maintaining your net zero standards. The third E is equity. It's everything that revolves around social impact and the work that we do in our communities. It's core to Formula E because we really were founded in city centers, impacting positively, but also sometimes we recognize negatively our local communities because we close the streets, streets. Sometimes people cannot park where they're used to. So we want to give back to local communities, and we have a focus on children, on gender equality, and really on micro-local organizations such as micro-local charities or neighborhood organizations and so on. And the last E is what we call ecosystem. It's how we create value through our sustainability credentials with and for our key stakeholders. So, the work we do obviously with teams, I'm looking at Sylvain, the work we do with our partners, the work we do with our suppliers, and for example, our thought leadership events. It's all part of the ecosystem on how we raise and elevate, in essence, the credentials of everyone within the series to basically push forward and advance even further when it comes to sustainability.
Brilliant. So very holistic, as you say. So Sylvain, underpinning everything that Formula E does is the technology, and the championship is often described as a testbed for sustainable innovation. What is your approach at Envision Racing when it comes to innovation, and are there some really great examples of exciting solutions that you've developed in recent years, recent seasons, that you'd really like to share with the audience?
Yeah, they are quite technical. So, and I can talk about this for a very long time. So, trying to pick a few, but as Julia said, you have the two pillars, right? You have the technology development, which we do generation after generation, and even within each generation, one of the most impressive aspects of Formula E, I believe, is the fact that it's the continuous development. So within a 4-year generation, we have a brand new hardware, brand new motor, inverter, gearbox, all the electric powertrain technology that we develop. We have a brand new hardware every 2 years. And then after that, within that, every race, every session, even within every race weekend, we keep on developing the software, the energy management, the algorithm, all the kind of invisible parts of the race car. Which means an easier way of explaining that is that if you take a car at the beginning of the season and you take the exact same car at the end of the season, exact same hardware, that car at the end of the season goes a lot faster than the car at the beginning of the season, even though it's the same exact car you're looking at. It's this continuous development that we are doing, and that electric cars enable. That's the reason why I love Formula E and I love electric cars, is the fact that you can do so much with the software, the controls, the systems. You can do a lot more than you can do on an IC engine. But yeah, it gets quite technical after that. So ultimately, back to the roadmap, right? Julia and I were there at the beginning, and then I always tell people to go back and look at YouTube videos of our races in season 1, and then compare to what we are doing now. And it's just unbelievable, the progress in 10 years, really, in 10 years of R&D. And that's through, battery energy density, power density of motors, overall efficiency. We've doubled the amount of energy in the battery. We have 3 times more power. The size of the motor has been divided by 3. I could go on and on and on, but the level of technology advancement in these 10 years has been incredible. Hence why we have these super exciting race cars now. So yeah, the race cars underpin how exciting the sport is, right? And I think, Julia, that's why in April we will announce and reveal the Gen 4 car, which is again a huge step in performance. And ultimately, racing is performance, right? Performance is a way to showcase what these cars can do, and I think that's what we are all excited by it.
Amazing. And as you say, looking back on the first race and looking at now, it really showcases what years of that incremental innovation, as you say, can do. So one of the things that I'm very interested in how you guys work with all the partnerships you do, whether that's with universities or whether with big name brands as partners. Could you, Sylvain, just talk through one of your sort of favorite partnerships that you've worked with, and maybe talk a little bit more about how you work with those universities?
Yeah, sure. I can't really pick a favorite child. That's not so easy.
Fair enough.
But I think it's a good question in terms of, how have we achieved so much progress in such a short amount of time? And I think one of the strengths of Formula E ecosystem is how many brands and companies and points of view have been put together. So we have obviously car manufacturers. We have a great partnership with JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, and they build the hardware of the race car that we develop with them and then optimize with them. So that's the first partnership. So you have a great mix of car manufacturers that obviously do what they do best, which is to develop the fundamentals of the car itself. But then you have companies like mine, like Envision. We are a green tech company. We are a renewable energy company. We are a software AI company. We do everything but the car. So which is a great partnership to align Envision with the car manufacturer. And then, as you say, we work with the universities all around the world. Because also simply selfishly for talent attraction, right? Like ultimately, I want the best engineers in my team. A lot of the best engineers tend to like the idea of working in motorsport, so that works well. But still, you have to make sure that we hire people that are joining for the right reason, and they buy into not only the excitement of racing, but they buy into the values of the team and Formula E and what we are doing it. And because it's long hours at the track sometimes over the weekend, right? So it's better, it helps if you know why you're there and why you're doing it. So yeah, Formula E, I would say, and even Julia can talk about this, it's a very large partnership between investors, car manufacturers, tier one suppliers, teams like mine. We have more and more AI companies joining the sport because the software side is so big. And of course, and maybe we'll talk about it later, the wider climate community, So we have had many events with Michael Mann, Johan Rockstrom, and they came to speak to our events. And when we do that, I try to always make sure that myself and the team stay very humble. Like we give them a platform. They know more than us in the climate world. So I told Johan and Michael and people like that I said to them, we are the megaphone. Like, you tell us, you impart us the latest science, the latest knowledge, and we amplify your message. Because I think what is really interesting, and again, that's Julia's specialization, is the fact that we reach different crowds and fans and demographics, right? So I always make this not very good joke that who reads all the IPCC reports, right? Not many people, but the findings are super interesting. So how do you kind of condense these findings and broadcast them to a really wide and really large amount of people in a really digestible and exciting way? And that's one of the things Formula E does really well. So yeah, Formula E, I would summarize it, is a very large partnership of all these type of companies and individuals, and I think that's what makes the strength of the sport.
See, and I would certainly agree with the mantra of letting the experts share their insights. I mean, that's something we obviously very much like to do with things like this podcast, for example. So on the question of partnerships and collaborations, Julia, sponsorship is obviously a major part of all global sport and of motorsport. How do you align with commercial partners in a way that strengthens rather than dilutes Formula E's sustainability mission, your brand within that space, and what are the biggest considerations that you have before agreeing to work with a partner?
Yeah, it's very important because obviously sponsorship is really, quintessential within Formula E. And in essence, we really use that as a way to attract like-minded partners, again, teams and so on. But also, we're never shy of a conversation where someone might be coming to us and be willing to be part of the championship, and not necessarily being at the top of sustainability when it comes to their industry. And for us, it's actually an opportunity to work with someone that is willing, and the opportunity also to challenge sometimes some biases and showcase through a joint project that actually you can create a lot of positive impact, whether it's environmental or social. And that's the way we look at it. We welcome everyone around the table because we really believe in the power of collaboration. We really believe in the power of action. We have a saying we normally say, people basically talk about it, we deliver on these things. So it's very much the ethos at Formula E, and we've had some wonderful examples of partnerships, some very technical in terms of integration. DHL, for example, is our logistics partner. DHL have completely rethought through the logistics roadmap for the series, having a regional clusterized approach, changing completely the way we use air freight with really pretty impressive numbers in terms of carbon footprint reduction. We're close to 25% carbon footprint reduction thanks to those major radical disruptive changes. But also in turn, we also work on, awareness, children education and so on. This is something that we do a lot with PIF. And last year, just with our online educational modules for children around sustainability, we impacted over 60,000 children across the globe. So it's major, and that's how we create impact, because it's authentic integration and people that really decide to change the game when they come together.
Amazing. So you touched on freight there, which is one of the obviously a component of your carbon footprint. You've obviously been very vocal about net zero and science-based targets, being net zero from the outset. For the benefit of our audience, what have been the hardest emission sources for you to tackle so far, and where are you really seeing the breakthroughs at the moment, and where is there further work to do?
So I think for the benefit of your audience, we need to take a step back and explain that most of the carbon footprint of the series comes actually from the fact that you should look at us as a traveling circus. So what creates impact is the fact that we're traveling around the world, and mostly that we obviously are shipping the race cars, the batteries, the chargers, and so on. You don't have several sets of race cars. In the first season we did, Sylvain, I remember it, but it's not the most efficient way of doing it. So in essence, that's basically 90% of the carbon footprint, anything that revolves around freight and also travel of the people that go around the world, to deliver the series. So That's why probably the most difficult thing is what we've done with DHL, to really basically sit around the table and have an open conversation, very honest and collaborative on the fact that they are our biggest issue in essence, but they are also acutely aware of that. It's their expertise, it's their industry, and they are pioneers in sustainability also in their own field. So that's how they've been able to completely challenge the status quo and rethink completely entirely our logistics. And believe me, going from 3 planes to 2, which was already very lean in terms of logistics, has been really a big challenge, and also an effort across the board. I mean, Sylvain will be able to testify it. Also for the teams, it's meant some radical changes that everyone basically agreed on. Because the beauty of this project is that it brings multiple layers of benefits. Obviously, it brought some environmental benefits, but also it was most cost effective. And that's where sustainability becomes powerful, because you basically reach economic and environmental benefits. Then, social will be reached through different and other projects. But that's why it's powerful. And that's exactly what we want to showcase at Formula E.
Brilliant. So Sylvain, we've just talked about some of the changes you made in terms of the travelling circus, as Julia put it, and you've also mentioned at the top of the conversation about all the amazing incremental improvements that have been delivered already over the years. Where do you see the biggest remaining opportunities in terms of performance, both from a sustainability point of view and also from a competitive point of view, in terms of the cars themselves?
Yeah, well, Julia and I are quite busy. Like on the sports side, you can always, we both kind of get to the point where it's diminishing returns now. Like we've achieved so much in terms of how lean the sport is, and you can go into so many examples, but we're not going to find 10% improvements every year forever, because it gets so lean, which is good news, right? That's how it should be working. So the series is working on even more efficient ways to do the freight, but it's hard. Sometimes you have to put numbers into things to make it understand, right? So my entire team, the 2 cars, all the equipment, the IT, the tools, the garage, all these things, it's around 7 tons of freight, which is absolutely nothing compared to any forms of motorsport or even any traveling circus, for example, whatever sport it might be. It's extremely lean. What it means is that our garage is like focused on the essentials, like the cars, the IT and these things, and the basic branding. But it's very powerful, because it shows, like, when we have guest sponsors, partners, climate experts, they come and they are amazed by the tech and the cars and the performance, but they're also equally amazed by how lean we are, which I think is a good example to set. On the performance side, there are so many, but it's the fundamentals of electric cars, right? So over 10 years of development, we've doubled the amount of energy in a car, we've tripled the amount of power, and we want more. Like that's where innovation becomes really powerful, right? So the ideal electric race car would have as much energy in the battery as the equivalent of a fuel tank, which is not possible today. And then we would have a megawatt of power, 1,300 horsepower, and then we would have the fastest car ever. Interestingly, the power side is actually really easy. So we will unveil the Gen 4 car soon that is incredibly powerful, very close to a Formula 1 car, and with incredible performance stats. So that's actually, we're there. We've made some incredible steps. And if you saw the size of just one of our electric motors that can develop 500 horsepower, you just wouldn't believe how small that is. And if you compare that to electric road cars, they compare really favorably. Like it's a massive step, difference in technology between the best road cars and what we do in Formula E, which is really good sign for the future. The main thing we're working on always is efficiency. So we're now getting to a point where the whole powertrain is 96.5, 97% efficiency. So what that means, without getting too technical, from the battery, the energy coming out of the battery, from the DC bus of the battery to the wheel. So basically going through the chain, inverter, motor, gearbox, diff, draft shaft, wheel, that whole traction chain, the same on the road car, that's about 97% efficient. So only 3% of losses, which is unbelievable. Like, right, to put that in perspective, an IC engine, road car, petrol, diesel, whatever you drive, is about 20-25% efficient. On a good day, when it's warm, on the motorway, when the engine is warm. If you do a short school run in winter when the engine is cold, it's more like 10-15. So when you put fuel in your car, on average, 15 to 20% makes it to the wheel. 80% is wasted in friction and heat. It's pretty horrific for the planet, but also it's expensive. It's not efficient. Yeah. A really good electric road car is 80-85%. It's a lot better. And Formula E, 95-97 to the best one. So it shows the art of the possible. It shows where it's going. And efficiency, which is kind of a technical term that doesn't necessarily apply always to real life, but it's one of these beautiful things that has no downside. Like everything we make is more efficient. There's no downside to efficiency. So the more efficient our race cars are, the faster they go. But you can take that exact same technology and put it in a road car, and you either get performance the same way or you get more range. And we can see now a trend in the car industry where we've been chasing range for the last 5-8 years, bigger and bigger batteries and efficiency as well. And now we're getting to a point where the latest electric road cars, based on 800 volt high voltage platform, which was pioneered by Formula E, one of the many things, are getting so efficient now that car manufacturers can start to reduce the size of batteries. So we are not going to need 150 kilowatt hour battery, gigantic batteries that have a lot of embedded carbon in the production of it and cost and weight. The beauty of very efficient electric cars is that they don't need huge batteries to have a very decent range. So the combination of that and the fact that people understand that we don't all need a car that can do 500 miles on a charge, like we just don't need it. There's a sweet spot somewhere for depending on where people are and where people live. We're getting to this really nice, I think, really interesting time in industry where technology is not good enough to give us options, to give us really affordable, still good range, but very affordable electric cars, and then also incredibly long range, 500 mile plus cars, which is amazing, right? Like 5 years ago, that no one would have thought that was possible. So energy density of batteries, of course, in a given volume and weight, you want as much energy in that battery, right? That's where we are addicted to fossil fuels because it's such an incredible resource, in like another way of saying the same thing, which I think is quite interesting. You look at our race cars, and the Formula E race is between 45 minutes and 1 hour. We start the race with 38.5 kilowatt hour in the battery. So that's the amount of energy that the car has on the grid. That's the equivalent of less than 4 liters of fuel. So we can do a whole race of almost an hour with 4 liters of fuel in the tank in the battery, which is incredible, right? That shows the efficiency. And the reason why we do that is because, one, the car is so efficient, and secondly, because we regenerate so much energy through the corners. So the combination of really high regen at 600 kilowatts, about 6 times more than the best road cars, combined with very high efficiency, means that almost half of the energy used by the car during the race has been generated by the car itself. The car is its own power station for life, which is incredible, right? Compared to driving a petrol car around and just burning fuel and never seeing it again. So all these things are really what makes Formula E an incredible place to be for innovation, and ultimately does the right thing, which is it trickles down to road cars. So of course, on average, batteries have been improving about 8% year on year on energy density, just by improving different chemistries of lithium-ion batteries. So just by keep doing that, we increase by 50% every 5 years, like we get there. But also at some point there will be also some step change in technology that will increase 20-30% in one go, And then once we get there, then that's it, it's game over, Like when you have cars that are so efficient, so cheap to run, so reliable, with so much energy in the battery, then that's it. Like we'll keep driving petrol cars around for fun on the weekend. If we like it, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the main mobility, it will become a slam dunk.
Brilliant. Well, you've really preempted my question there, which was about tech transfer and the importance of Formula E on that front. So just to finish off, then I'm going to ask Julia, just what from your point of view is the biggest impact you see Formula E having in terms of kind of the cultural impact and shifting audience mindset? What's your role in that bigger picture?
Yeah, I think, you've understood and Sylvain described it. Formula E is basically like a two-lever type of platform. First of all, and first and foremost, the technological one, because then from the technological one, you go to the marketing, or let's say the social impact lever. And basically from the technology that we showcase, we're able to, first of all, inspire people to adopt a very clear, pathway to more sustainable, more efficient form of transportation. But I think it's more holistic, and that's where obviously the sustainability credentials in of the series come into play, because we are getting people to experience, when you're coming really on the ground with us, or if you're following online with all the content that we publish, experience, see, test, and be inspired by sustainable lifestyles. And what we want people to take away is that obviously, first of all, you should drive electric vehicles because it's just like a much more enjoyable, efficient solution, but also living a more sustainable lifestyle is actually something that is really cool, really innovative, and just simply will feel better. So it's very much the role that we play when it comes to the marketing lever that the series has.
Absolutely. I think that's a very lovely point to leave the conversation on. So unfortunately, we're at time, but I really appreciate your time today. So Sylvain, Julia, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much again to the Formula E and Envision Racing teams. So in terms of impacts, obviously the climate footprint that motorsports and kind of sports more broadly can obviously be huge, and reducing that is a broad challenge. So it's the events themselves, the logistics, the materials, energy use, and then of course fan behaviour. So making the industry more sustainable isn't just about reducing a specific sport or an individual event's own environmental impact. It's also about the wider influence that it can have. So if millions or even billions of fans see sustainable practices normalised, whether that's kind of installing clean energy at stadiums or electric racing, that cultural shift really matters in terms of the kind of the broader net zero transition. Now, before we close off, we just wanted to introduce you to an innovator working at the intersection of nature and climate resilience. So here's Alex Crosdell, the founder of seagrass restoration startup Seavive.
Thanks for being with us today, Alex. I just want to start by asking you what the problem is you're looking to solve.
So seagrass is one of the ocean's most valuable ecosystems. It's a powerful carbon sink and a nursery for around a quarter of marine species starting out their initial journey in life. Despite this, we've lost over 90% of our seagrass meadows in many regions around the world. And at the same time, two of the biggest global challenges we're facing is rising carbon emissions and growing food insecurity. A healthy ecosystem are part of the solution to both of these. There's already a lot of important restoration work happening in the seagrass space, but scaling it up is hard. Current methods are expensive, logistically heavy, and often rely on specialist infrastructures to be built, which local groups and communities sometimes just simply can't access.
Brilliant. And what is your solution for that at Seavive?
So we've developed a tool that supports one of these key stages in the seagrass restoration, the seed processing. Harvesting and planting can kind of be done by hand, but it's the seed processing of removing the seeds from the seagrass sheets themselves. And this works directly within the coastal environment. So instead of relying on specialist inland facilities, these units can be deployed using existing marine infrastructure, such as harbours or pontoons, to alleviate a lot of the licensing requirements that currently can be quite big bottlenecks in restoring seagrass.
And what is your key differentiator?
So there's some brilliant science and restoration happening here in the UK and globally. Where we're different is how we try and apply an engineering and user-centered design to that work. So my background is in product design and mass manufacture, and our focus is on making restoration more accessible at a lower cost, focusing on the user and their needs during the restoration cycle. The current systems typically are all inland and require either volunteers or hired staff to be doing quite a lot of manual work to remove these seeds from the sheaths. And let's be honest, no one wants to be sludging around in rotting seagrass to get their seeds, but it's a work that needs to be done. So we're trying to replace that or work alongside that existing systems, especially for areas which are more desolate and don't have, for example, access to electricity. So these units work autonomously in the ocean and do that quite manual labour. We're not trying to replace existing restoration efforts, but we just want to support with tools that fit into the real world constraints and can scale up and down depending on the size of the project.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Alex.
Thank you.
So thanks to Alex from Seavive. If you're an innovator and also want to share a bit more about your solution with our audience on an episode of Future Now, please email matthew@springwise.com. So Matt, somehow it's already nearing the end of March. So as we know, that's always a really busy month for Springwise and the ED team. So talk us through what we've got to look forward to.
Yes, absolutely. So we often refer to it as March Madness in ED and Springwise. It's an exciting time for us because this week we have ED26 in London, where we'll be speaking with innovators and corporate leaders about what climate action really looks like in 2026. So we're having our new look innovation stage, which we're hosting in partnership with the Earthshot Prize. We're going to have some really great panels in that session. So we're going to be talking about how we can scale up climate innovation, but also AI and sustainability, both the impact AI is having on sustainability, but also how it can be used in decarbonisation. We're also having something that I'm particularly excited about, about, which are the Meet the Innovator sessions, where we're going to get a group of innovators to pitch their ideas for just 5 minutes, no slides, and then have them to talk to our ED audience in a kind of more conversational format through roundtables, with them circulating around those tables. So that's a really great chance to have a meaningful conversation between startups and corporates, which is increasingly what we're all about at Springwise, that collaboration piece and how those different groups can come together to scale up innovation. So I'm really excited about that, and I think all our listeners should be too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all go this week, and then pretty much straight after, the Springwise team will be heading back to Change Now in Paris. So that's one of the world's largest events focused on solutions for the planet. So we'll get the chance to meet some of the innovators tackling our world's biggest problems in person and hear from leading change makers about how they're catalysing positive action.
So yes, if you're at either of those events, please be sure to come and say hello. Come to the innovation stage at ED26, and at Change Now we're also going to have our own Springwise stand. So please come and say hi.
And for the next episode, we'll be coming to you from Change Now to speak with sustainability and innovation leaders on the ground. So stay tuned for that. But for now, goodbye from me and thanks for listening.
See you next time. Goodbye.